The wealthy simply know things we don't. And one of the things they know is how not to pay as much in taxes as you and me. So we're going to talk a lot about taxes, and we're going to talk about how you can get rid of that invisible partner that's been part of your business that you never wanted, the IRS. Yeah, the invisible partner that none of you asked to be partners with, but all of you are partners with. We're going to get rid of them, and we're going to show you how you can operate your business in the proper environment. What the hell are these wealthy individuals, these elites, doing that we're not doing? Because I'm paying a lot in taxes. I'd get my paycheck, and I'd look at that thing, I'd be like, oh man, I worked my butt off this week. And I'd look at it and it was like, oh man, here's the gross number. Then all of a sudden I'd look at the bottom with all the taxes taken out, and I'd be like, government gets this, I keep this. So if I don't work for the government and I'm self-employed, why does the government take so much money? Well, because I'm uninformed. That's what I came to the conclusion of. I came to the conclusion that it wasn't that the wealthy and the elite were doing something illegal. It wasn't that they were doing something that was like, beating the system that we don't have access to. They just got informed. I was the silly one. I was the one like, oh, I'm so mad. But you know what? I'm the uninformed one. The same information was available to me that's available to them. If somebody offered you wisdom or they offered you gold, which would you take? Most people would take the gold because they would think, oh my God, I can go buy this, I can do that, I can change my life, I can buy nicer clothes. But eventually, the gold would run out. And it would all end up back in the same place it came from in the beginning. And you'd be there wondering and waiting for more gold and trying to find ways to make more. But if you had chosen wisdom, the wisdom would enable you to earn more gold all the time and have continuous flows of gold to buy the things you want, to do the things that you might want to do, and to live the life you want. But it was hard. You had to give up something to get that. And what you had to give up is that immediate gratification, that fear of missing out on something you want, which gold could buy. In return, you got the wisdom to then turn a faucet on or an income stream on that would provide you gold for the rest of your life. Most people would have taken the gold. I chose the wisdom, and I think you should too. So let me show you a little bit about how to use wisdom when it comes to your money. So make sure you consult with your CPA and your legal professional that you work with on this. That's what I had to do, so that's what you should do. But I found out that this is available to everybody. It's part of the 1913 tax code. The wealthy, the informed, just took part in a part of the tax code that really talked heavily about what it is they can do, where they can put their money, where they don't have to pay as much in taxes. And it involved some very complex things. It took me a long time to wrap my head around. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to realize that you're just not supposed to be the smart one in that category. And then you got to seek out and find the person that's smart enough, that understands this stuff, that can guide you and give you prudent advice as to how to do this. And it started with me finding that person. Just like all of you, you're on a journey. Whatever your journey is, it's going to involve other people. Don't be that person that thinks you know what you don't know. Find somebody that knows what you need to know to put you in that position. That's what I did. And I went online and I looked at some stuff. So right here, I just went to Google, and all I did is I Googled one of the things that I was told called complex trust. And it says, what is a complex trust? Well, a complex trust may accumulate income, distribute amounts other than current income, and make deductible payments for charitable purposes and purchases under Section 642C of the code. They got all these 640C and all these other codes. You don't need to know that. But you should have heard one thing in there, deductible. Well, let's kind of talk a little bit about somebody you all know, actually two people you all know. One is Bill Gates, the other one, Warren Buffett. And I want you to think about that time when Bill Gates, and I Googled that too, and you guys can check this out. I just went in here and I Googled, when Warren Buffett makes charitable contributions, because he's getting deductions. Well, what he does is a lot of times Warren, he's so wealthy, his money's in trust, like what we just talked about, and then he's making charitable contributions from his trust to a foundation. You all know foundations. The Ronald McDonald House. There's all sorts of foundations that you can donate money to for good causes. Well, Bill Gates who's the operator of, we'll just call it the Gates Foundation, and Warren happen to be buddies. So they get together, and Warren's like, I got to give all my money away. Right, remember that? He's going to give his entire net worth away, his entire worth and all of his wealth away. And everybody's like, really? Warren's that nice of a guy? So Warren makes big charitable contributions to the Gates Foundation. Now, Bill Gates controls the Gates Foundation, which means he has the utmost control to decide how to invest this giant donation from Mr. Awesome Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett makes this deduction, or this tax-deductible contribution to the Gates Foundation. And the Gates Foundation, I'm sure, does good things. Maybe, all of you don't agree, but hey, let's just pretend for today that all the Gates Foundation does is good humanitarian things. Okay, that's what a foundation should do, is things that are good for all of us. So that donation gets made. Now, because Bill Gates has the ability to invest that money any way he sees fit, what would be a logical thing for Bill Gates to do? Well, Bill Gates goes and buys a big stake in this fund called Berkshire Hathaway. You guys know anything about Berkshire Hathaway? It's great fun. It's got a great track history. There's nothing in the history of this particular fund that would say that's not a solid investment. Actually, it would be a darn fine investment. But who controls Berkshire Hathaway? Oh, that guy. Warren Buffett does. So Warren takes his money, his entire wealth from his trust, and donates it to this charitable foundation owned by his buddy called the Gates Foundation. He gets a big deduction for that. Then Bill Gates takes that money and prudently invests it in a smart investment, a lucrative, profitable investment called Berkshire Hathaway that just so happens to be fully owned and controlled by Mr. Warren Buffett. So Mr. Warren Buffett gave up control of his money and then immediately got control back, and in the middle got a giant tax deduction. How many other wealthy individuals do you hear doing this? Well, Mark Zuckerberg, you've heard that. A ton of them. We could go down the line. You could just Google it. You could watch YouTube videos on this. Do you understand what just happened there? They figured out that in the tax code, they could give up control for a good purpose, get deductions, and then get control back. That's just one way. The other way I want you to really think about, and again, check with your CPA as to whether this works for you, but when you file your taxes, right at the top of your taxes, I want you to think about, what does it say? What are you reporting? Now, whether this means anything or not to you, you are filing a 1040 tax return. Now, you're like, yeah, but that's what we all file. And it is, because we all get a job. We trade hours for dollars. We go to work. Most of us get pissed off that we got to work such long hours and we're never paid enough, right? How many of you are paid enough, right? You go to your job, are you getting paid more than what you're worth? No, you're never paid enough. But you trade hours for dollars and you get a paycheck. And at the end of the paycheck, they take a bunch of taxes out. You file your taxes at the end of the year and it says 1040 at the top. And 1040 is the one way you can file your taxes that absolutely positively doesn't benefit you. I'm serious, it has no benefit really in your favor. It's benefiting the government, the IRS. They're the ones winning in that proposal. So what do the wealthy do? Well, they do file 1040 taxes, but they pick and choose how much of their income to file 1040. Imagine if you could just say, hey, I make $100,000 a year, and I only want to pay tax on 30 of it. So I'm only going to I don't use all 100, so I'm only going to use 30,000 of it. And I'm not going to pay tax on the rest. Wouldn't that be pretty damn badass? Well, that's what the wealthy do. They say, all right, the wealthy might say, all right, I need $1 million to live on. And that's going to be their salary, let's just say. And then they pay taxes on that, 1040. You might be like, well, they're paying a bunch of taxes. Well, they are on that. But then let's say they make $10 million, okay? Well, out of 10 million minus $1 million, there's $9 million left that has to find its home and onto a tax return. And what do? Well, they have figured out 1041 tax reporting. 1041 tax reporting, and you can look this up, it's right here, is trusts and foundations. And by doing this strategy, by learning the 1041 tax strategy or tax reporting, which is part of the tax code, and there's nothing illegal about this. We both have access to this. By doing this, they just figured out how much they're going to pay in taxes. They decided not the IRS. Unlike you, when you get your paycheck, you didn't decide how much you wanted to pay in taxes. Well, yes, I did, Chris. I decided whether to claim a 0, a 1, a 5. I picked that. Man, just get off. Like, seriously, like, that's not what I'm talking about. Imagine if you could dial. You had a little dial, and you could just sit there and you could just tune in what you want to pay taxes on just based on what you're going to take this year. But that doesn't mean that's all you get. Because through this 1041 tax reporting, they're not giving up control of all of their money. They still have lots of other ways to make income. But they still have other ways to not pay taxes. So first lesson today is to get with a professional that understands 1040 versus 1041 tax reporting and figure out if that can help you not give so much money to Uncle Sam. Here you go, Uncle Sam. You can have all of my money. And can I just have a little bit back? Really? Really, man? That's all you're going to give me? How about a little bit more? No? All right, well, maybe I better get informed. Oh, Mr. You're so generous. Thank you so very much. All right. Anyway, that doesn't taste very good. So let's talk a little bit about other ways that the wealthy use different things that are available to not pay taxes. Well, many of you have heard of real estate. Actually, most of you probably live in a house. Whether you own it or whether you rent it, you understand what real estate is. So a lot of the wealthy find ways, directly or indirectly, to own real estate. But why? Because real estate holds a whole bunch of ways that we can not have to pay taxes. Things like, when you buy a piece of real estate, it's a tangible asset. We can depreciate. Okay, we can depreciate that asset. And if you got a good CPA, you can find ways to use depreciation in your favor, especially if you buy this house with the intent to rent it. Or let's just say it's your first house and you buy a duplex. Let's just cut this sucker right down the middle and we'll just put 2 doors. You live in one side and somebody else rents the other side, but then someday you move out and you upgrade your life to a nicer house. You rent both out. Now you've got this rental. You can take depreciation on this. And every time you have to fix something, that's the deduction or capital improvement. But the whole thing is if you're charging rent to the people living, let's just call it $1,000 a side, you've got $2,000 in income coming in. Let's say your expenses are $1,000 for simple math. So you got $1,000 in expenses. You got $1,000 in net income. Well, the first thing you're thinking was, I got to pay tax on all $1,000 every single month or $12,000 a year. Well, maybe not. Because a good CPA would look at it and say, okay, let's see how much we can depreciate this property this year. So now all of a sudden, maybe your $1,000 in net income after deductions, okay, after let's just call it depreciation, maybe now you only owe tax on $800 of that. Oh, but didn't you have to do some work? Remember when that one tenant left and they kicked the door down, they broke a bunch of things you had to paint? Yeah, those all cost money, didn't they? So we had to put $10,000 into the property to fix it in expenses. Okay, some of it might be, improvements, but let's just call it all, you just had to repair things. Well, now all of a sudden, if you were bringing in net income after depreciation of $800, but you had to put 10 grand in, how much are your taxes? You can start doing the math and seeing how this can work in your favor really well, right? But some of you are so caught up in saying, yeah, but you had to spend 10 grand, so that money already left. Yeah, but you're not getting it. There are ways to do this without making it as black and white as what I'm showing you. So real estate has always been a really, really great way. But then I know some of you are like, yeah, but you know what? Those tenants, those termites, all those problems that come along with the rental, I don't want to own one. Well, a lot of wealthy people said the same thing. Man, I don't want the headaches of real estate. I don't want the liability. So they find ways to be 100% passive in real estate. And they do this all sorts of ways. Maybe it's through private funds. They invest in a private fund, or they partner with a company that does real estate, or maybe they use this whole new thing called syndications. But in either one of these, not so much the fund, but if you were a partner in one, you did nothing, but you were an owner in it, or maybe a syndication, you can take advantage of the depreciation and those expenses to get your taxes down. You see, you don't always have to own the property. Rockefeller said, own nothing, control everything. You think he didn't use some of this stuff? Well, certainly he did. That's the informed or uninformed tax reporting or tax system, if you will. So how else do the wealthy not have taxes? Well, let's talk about the single biggest problem you are all making. Where do you take your money when you make it and put it? You make money, and what do you do with it? you give it to somebody else's bank, right? You give it to one of the big box banks. Well, the wealthy figured out how to change one thing, and they changed where their money went first. I want you to think about an airplane. I want you to think about an airplane flying in an environment where there's a headwind. You've all dealt with this. Pilot comes on and says, "Psh, just to let everybody know, we're going to be landing 15 minutes late. If you've got connecting flights, you're going to have to run your ass off because we got some terrible headwinds." The airplane is flying in the wrong environment. Those headwinds are your taxes. Okay, those headwinds are lots of things. But now let's just say the plane is flying in a different environment where it has a tailwind. I just landed last night and the pilot comes on, "Psh, just to let everybody know, we're going to be landing about 20 minutes early because we've got a really strong tailwind. Woohoo! Beers on me." Just kidding. No beers on me on a plane. But anyway, so we can change the environment and where our money operates. Just like a plane can change the environment in which it flies. Then we can change the outcome of what happens, and the wealthy figured this out. Instead of putting the money in someone else's bank or in Wall Street or other places, which they do, they changed where the money went first to change the environment. And they put their money in a tax-free environment. In a vehicle all of you know about, not many of you understand, I can certainly tell you that. And they changed and put their money not at banks, but at giant mutually owned insurance companies through a vehicle you all know and have heard of called whole life insurance. Now, before you turn this off and I watch these ratings go down, I want you to understand that I'm not talking about a regular whole life. The wealthy don't buy the same whole life from their broke-ass brother-in-law or from the insurance store. They create and design the policy to operate in this environment and so that it operates like a banking system. So they change where their money goes first. And then their money would look very much like this. So let's just say in an example, somebody were to have put $120,000. I'm just going to give you the numbers. They put $120,000, okay, in the first year. Instead of putting it in a regular bank, they put it in their bank, which is a specially designed and engineered whole life. And then in the first year, if they need that money, or in the first 30 days they need that money, they have access to about 110 as per this illustration. So not 100%, but pretty close. Some people argue about this, and I'm like, really? So you're that guy that goes into the bank and deposits the 120 grand, goes back 30 days later and takes 120 grand out for no apparent reason, just to say, "See, I told you I could do it." You do that, don't you? And how many forms did you have to fill out when you went to the bank? Yep, got to fill this form out, that form out, got to pay taxes on it. Here, you don't have access to all of it in the first year, but most of it. But then let's go to the second year. They change and they want to deposit 20 grand year 2. But in year 2, they put 20 grand in, and how much do they have? 20,805, more than they did the year before. So then they're like, that's pretty cool. Year 3, they put another 20 grand in. And in year 3, they've got 21,794. But this only goes one direction, folks, and that's up. It's called uninterrupted compound interest. Each year, they make a deposit, and they have more money to take out than they did the prior year. And you can see this, and it will keep going straight down this column, which we'll show. But let's go to year 10. In year 10, this individual decided to deposit $18,519, kind of a weird number. And in the 10th year, they were able to take out $30,853. Now, I'm not going to do the math, but that's a nice little gain, right? But you're all thinking, yeah, but he's got to pay tax on that gain. Wrong. He doesn't have to pay tax. I told you earlier, this individual, this wealthy person who was informed and learned these secrets, just changed the environment in which his money or her money operated. And because of the change in the environment, which is changing from a bank to a specially designed and engineered whole life, this is called privatized banking, just so you know. This money operates in a tax-free environment, much like the plane flying with a perpetual tailwind. You see, all these different little things, and I just wanted to show some numbers because everybody's like, oh, that doesn't really exist. It's right there, folks. That's a real client's illustration. I'm not giving you the name. If we just become informed and we learn a little bit about how money works, what the wealthy do, and we just mimic it, we just follow some simple steps, you can change the environment in which you operate. You can change the environment in which you pay taxes, the environment in which your money operates, the environment in which everything financial in your life operates. Just like the plane. Just don't fly into the wind. Fly with the wind to your back. This changes all of that. These are just a couple, just a few, the pimple on the elephant's butt of what is available out there. And this is all the wealthy do. They tap into things that are available to you, yet you get mad thinking that they're trying to cheat and and then you think, oh, well, they're getting benefits over there and I got to pay higher taxes so that I'm paying their taxes. Wrong. They just changed the environment, just like you can. So folks, if you like this, make sure you check out this video because it's definitely going to blow your mind. And also, while you're at it, subscribe to this YouTube channel because I put up stuff like this all the time and I'll go deeper into these rules and the wealth laws that you need to follow. Hit that little alerts button, so that little bell, punch that thing, whack that thing, and then I'll let you know every video that's coming up. We'll see you on the next one.